Hey Oncers, it's Minx from Average Geek, and yet another episode of Once Upon a Time has happened tonight. I believe it's episode 4. If you have not watched episode 4, do not watch this video. That is the only disclaimer you're going to get, because I'm probably going to spoil stuff as I give my review. There is quite a bit to talk about, so let's get into it. The parallel stories in this episode were very Arthur-centric, and they actually happen about 5 years apart. Our first scene or so in the show this week, we see Arthur as a boy and Guinevere as well, and he's pretty much telling her about his destiny. We find out that Merlin was already in the tree, allegedly. I still don't know if I buy that he is a tree. I think, that might be his way of keeping track of things. And all of this other stuff. He gets bullied, blah, 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 becomes even more determined to fulfill his destiny. They pretty much replay the scene of him pulling the sword out and discovering that the tip is broken off, and he begins this obsessive journey to find that missing piece. He finds out it's the Dark One's dagger, what's used to control the Dark One, and just begins this massively obsessive, way to find it. Ends up going through Merlin's notes and just poring over them for hours and hours and hours. So much so that at some point Gwen comes to him and is just like, I miss my husband. Can you be my husband for like the day? And, that would be nice. And he's just going on about, oh my God, I pretty much broke the code. The only thing I haven't figured out is these 3 symbols, which is a star, which remarkably looks similar to the star from Supernatural. Just want to point that out. An eye and a sun. Very defined symbols. And she kind of leaves dejectedly because he kind of rebuffs her and is like, oh, just give me 5 more minutes and then I'll come out and we'll dance and blah, blah, blah. You end up moving forward and Lancelot comes over to talk to her, and you find out it's actually Gwen's birthday, so Arthur's kind of a dick because he's got his head so far up his own butt that he can't even remember it's his wife's birthday, so that automatically makes him a douche husband. Lancelot tries to cheer her up, dances with her, says that Arthur, put on this party, and it's all from him, when in reality Lancelot put it on to make sure that she felt better. We progress on a little bit. Arthur comes out and he's all excited because he's figured everything out, and he's like, I'm gonna da-da-da-da, and I'm gonna go find this thing and whatever. A little bit later, after we jump back to this 5 years in the past, Gwen tries to sneak out of what will eventually become the Grand Camelot, and Lancelot stops her, and we see a familiar relic, which you should be familiar with from last season, from the Queens of Darkness story plotline, and it's the gauntlet, the one that I think it's like the Gauntlet of Weakness. It shows you what your greatest weakness is or where to find it. And obviously, Arthur's greatest weakness is the Dark One's dagger. So those two end up going on like their own little quest to find it. This is where, they kind of realize that they have a thing for each other. The darkness actually attacks Lancelot, and Gwen kind of fends it off with a torch, which I thought was a little bit too easy. They end up kissing, and then they're like, oh, no, this could never happen again. That was also a little cheesy. They go through this portal door. The area looked kind of Neverland-esque. It looked like they were on Neverland Island, or wherever you'd frickin' call it. There's a little cage, and the dagger's sitting nice in the cage, and they go for it, and they get shot back, and it turns out they're actually searching for the dagger at the time Rumple is the Dark One. So that's kind of a good twist. I wasn't sure if they were gonna, actually bring out the guy before Rumple, or even somebody further in the past. It actually shows you just how recently these things have happened. He ends up making a deal with Gwen that in exchange for the gauntlet, which we all know Rumple really wanted. I mean, he fought like twice for that shit. That they would give the sands, like magical sand from Avalon. It's kind of a nice twist on how they kind of mention Avalon and bring it into the story. Makes me wonder if we're actually going to see Avalon at some point, you know, to get like more sand. And we'll get to that later, why they might need some. So that was really cool, getting to see that. Gwen, of course, takes the deal, and one of the lines of the night actually goes to Rumple for, you know, when he pretty much tells her, I wouldn't worry about the pain from a broken sword, but from a broken heart. So, kind of shitty. Pretty much knowing that she's got a thing for Lancelot. Which I would too, because Arthur's kind of a dick. You know, I wouldn't want to be married to him. Jerk. Anyway, yada yada, comes home, you know, Arthur ends up seeing them, you know, kind of have an emotional moment, and automatically thinks the worst, which, in a way, I could see that. Comes up, confronts her, you know, she's like, oh, we went to go find it, and we found it, but I didn't bring it home, I brought the sand home, blah, blah, blah. You know, she tells him, you know, Lancelot's leaving, so he won't betray you. All this other BS. You know, typical bull. And you end up seeing all this stuff go down. He ends up using the sand on Gwen, which I thought sucked. I mean, it kind of explains her zombie-esque bitchiness that we saw in the previous episodes, which kind of made me doubt her a little bit. So at least we have an answer for that. He ended up using the sand to actually build all of Camelot, which makes me wonder if there's a way to reverse this magic, because if they do, that shit's gonna crumble into dust, into a crappy little village. And then apparently there's some left, because they end up using it later on. Also, during this, there's a huge fight between Charming and Snow, because Arthur has supposedly tricked Charming into thinking that if they mend the sword, he'll be able to destroy the darkness. He'll have the power to do so. At first, Charming is buying what he's selling, and has a fight with Snow, because Snow's like, hell no, Lancelot's here, Arthur's a douche, we shouldn't trust him. And Charming's like, well, should we trust Lancelot? Blah, blah, blah. And so they end up doing this kind of predictable and kind of convoluted plan where Charming tells, you know, Arthur, oh, I brought the dagger with me, you know, my wife is against me doing this, but hey, here it is. And the box is empty, and they're like, oh my god, we gotta go find it. And then Snow is having Lancelot lead her to the vault, and it's like, oh, we gotta put the dagger back in, and Lancelot's like, let me do it, you know, I'm the dude, let me do it, you know, I'll fix it all. And, you know, and she tells him, no, you know, you can't, yada yada. Next thing you know, here's Arthur, sword point, and being a dick some more. You know, because apparently that's what he's good at. And then threatens to run through Lancelot after revealing that once he melds the sword together, he's going to run through Merlin. And then threatens to run through his best friend. And then Snow's like, whatever, here's the dagger. Takes it, he tries to call Emma, and then finds out it's a fake. Psych! Sorry, douche. And then Charming appears behind him, and Snow's just kind of like, took you long enough. And it's like, oh god, not again. It's like, you two kill me. And not in a good way. Apparently, they pretty much, you know, had this happen, planned on it. And they capture Arthur, take him back to Granny's. And it's funny because one of the other lines of the show, because there was actually like 3 really good lines and a really good scene that I'll get to in the present day Camelot, which just freaking had me rolling. Uh, but there's this point, Charming pulls out Excalibur, and he goes, finally, a blade that can stand up to Granny's meatloaf. So that's a tip. If you ever go to Granny's, don't eat the meatloaf. It is known, okay? So that was kind of cool. Typical thing, the rest of the Knights of the Round Table show up. Gwen comes in as Bitchy McBitcherpants and frees Arthur. They end up imprisoning Lancelot, and to get Charming and Snow's their cooperation, they use what looks like the last of that magical sand from Avalon on them. So of course they're going to be agreeable. Cheating bastards. So yeah, and then they go back and they argue with Regina about whether or not to about giving Arthur the dagger, which Regina is kind of like, no. One of the other funny lines of the thing is, of course, a Regina line. I was waiting for this because she's been a little overdue. And, she's pacing back and forth, and Robin's, like, telling her to relax, don't worry about them. And she literally turns around and says, you think I'm worried about them? They could outlive a cockroach. And I love the way she delivers her lines. She just, with so much conviction. So that's awesome. Probably my favorite overall scene is actually one where Hook and Henry lead Emma away, because she kind of suffered some magical backlash at one point because she was being drawn to the dagger, and of course Regina had put it in a box, obviously placing magic on it so no one could freaking touch it. Well, Emma touched it. She touched the thing, and it almost like magical rebound happened. She ended up all lethargic, and they were like, she needs to rest, she needs to get away from the stress and the quiet and the drama. Because I swear to God, there's more drama in Camelot than there is in high school. So Henry's like, oh, I have the perfect place. He ends up leading her to a stable out in the middle of nowhere. And come to find out, that's where he's been meeting Violet, the girl that he's actually, been kind of hooking up with a little bit. Although they're just friends. But you can tell he is sweet on her. And I think it's absolutely adorable that they've finally given Henry a more mature storyline without, making it completely adult, which is awesome. He finally gets kind of his first love interest. And that's actually the subject of this scene, because Hook just kind of gets a kind of look, and Emma's just kind of doing the mom thing, like, wait, he's what? And Hook's just like, oh yeah, he, props, fist bump. The look on his face through the entire scene is priceless and further etches Hook as one of my favorite characters. I'd say he's right behind Regina. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that happened that I really liked. Hook ends up taking Emma for a ride to try and clear out Mind Rumple, because she finally reveals this, to him, that I see him, and, he has this really poignant moment where he's like, I had to fight, the demons in my head, the demons of my past, the demons of, what I've done, and I used the Jolly Roger to do that. He goes, something that got my heart pumping and just, filled me with something that took up all that space. And so he takes her for a ride, and she's just like, oh my God. And then how appropriately cliche that they end up in a meadow full of flowers. And it's all cute and magical and awesome and romantic, and, they start making out in the middle of the meadow, which kind of gave me awkward flashbacks of Twilight, which I did not want. And then we flash to, and then, yeah, we finally get to see Merida again, which was mildly exciting, because I kind of wondered what happened to her. I still want to know what happened to her brothers, because they were like my favorite part of Brave. She's actually in the dungeons, in the cell across from Lancelot, and they introduce each other, and I think they're going to be good friends. So that was cool. And then we flash back to Storybrooke. Gold is literally strapped to like a gate, whatever the heck is blocking that basement area underneath her house, which I'm still trying to figure out how the hell she got one. And he's kind of arguing with her, like, I can't be your hero. That's not how it works. I understand what it feels like to have that darkness. You got to keep fighting. And she's like, no, 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 I'm going to give you something that'll make you a hero. I'm going to, I'm going to pretty much force it on him. And he's like, how are you going to do that? And she's like, let's call it my secret weapon. Next thing you know, she's going through a tunnel, wearing her weird outfit of, like, a leather jacket and leather pants. I don't quite get it. It's like kind of like Rumple's outfits, but stylized in all black to fit her extremely pale skin tone. And there's the gold bug, the yellow bug that I've been missing this entire season. Which obviously, if she's the dark one, she doesn't really have to drive anywhere. But still, it's such a staple for the personality. You kind of wonder where it's at. You see it. And then she goes around the front, and Merida is strapped to the bumper, all Jesus-like, and they kind of have a little rah, 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 rah. And Emma just snatches her heart and is like, boom, unties her, and is like, get up, get your bow. I have someone that you need to make, like you, he needs to be brave. It is probably one of the corniest references to a movie, or one of the, origins of these characters that I have ever heard. That was just, what? So overall, I'm going to give this huge points for the fact that they didn't overuse the CGI. There was super funny moments. There was a couple of poignant moments, which really touched in here. I feel like a couple of things were kind of sloppy and a little too easy. I did like some of the twists that were, brought forth. Like, there was a point in the middle of the episode where you didn't know whether it was Arthur or Lancelot who was actually trying to backstab everybody. I mean, granted, there is still a small opportunity that Lancelot could have turned around and used the dagger for his own nefarious purposes, but for the most part, we're pretty much sure that he's the good guy here. But I liked that twist where there was that point where you couldn't tell. The fact that Rumple was the Dark One during this time is awesome, because you don't really make that connection until you realize, okay, right, it's only 5 years in the past, and he should be, that should be about right. The fact that there were multiple lines that I could have used for the line of the episode, the one from Rumple when he was the Dark One, the one from Charming about Meatloaf, and the one from Regina about them outliving cockroaches, all stellar. The scene with Henry and Hook and Emma in the stable before Violet shows up to take Henry for a ride. That was just freaking hilarious. The looks on Hook's face. I think this episode made me really realize just how expressive Hook can be with just his eyebrows. Like, seriously. He has got emotional eyebrows. That's the only way I can describe it. Like I said, there was a few sloppy parts. I still don't know how I feel about the design work on how Emma looks when she's fully the Dark One. I feel like it's not... In some ways it's too severe, and in other ways it's not severe enough. Like, I don't feel like there's much of a transformation. It feels more like she's going through a punk phase. Like British punk or something. It doesn't feel Dark One to me. It's not really coming across yet. It was a little predictable that the fight, like, I was excited about a fight between Snow and David, both wanting the best for Emma and both coming at it from different ways, but as things were going, it became pretty apparent that they had plan to double-cross everybody, and we're like, yo, we gotta see who is the trustworthy person. So that was a little predictable. I didn't realize that they had any Sand of Avalon left, but it was also predictable that, Arthur was going to get rescued. It is his knights. I don't know. I think for the most part it was pretty good. There were some corny parts, like the reintroduction to Merida in the dungeons was kind of cool. The strap to the bumper thing, kind of lame, and the corny Brave mention. I think overall I would probably give the episode a solid A-. I think some of the scene sloppiness was a little bit tiresome. The corny reference again. Some of the predictability kind of sucked. But, it can't be perfect. I love the fact that there were multiple lines of the episode from 3 different characters. It wasn't all the same character. I liked the twisting of, again, of, oh shoot, who's the real bad guy? So that was good. Some good, solid scenes mixed in. So yeah, A- for this week. I'm looking forward to next week where we get to see more Merida. I'm also waiting to see when the hell we get Mulan back, because she's supposed to be back in this season. So I'm wondering when she's actually going to show up and how. That would almost be a cool twist if she ended up being the hero that was needed to pull the sword out, because let's face it, she is a swordswoman. And yeah, can't wait to see how this all works out. I have a feeling it's going to be very, very bad. And that's all for now. Later, Oncers!